He's the popular Steve Levy covering his 25th Stanley Cup final for the mothership as the Blues won Game 5, not without a little controversy. And Steve joins us now. Leaves, good morning. How are you?
Yeah, good morning. Peppa Pig is where I'm at with my young kids. So when talking Pepper, that's my first thought.
Okay, thank you, Steve. That's all we wanted from you. Have a good flight.
All right, good talking to you. Be well.
Okay, there was controversy here. How big a controversy was last night, that finish?
I'll tell you about two texts I got. One from a St. Louis fan who recalled the Don Denkinger call that worked against the Cardinals.
Wow.
So that's for the older generation. And then I heard from an NFL assistant type who said the missed call last night was as bad, if not worse, than the missed pass interference in Rams Saints last year in the NFC Championship game. So. Yeah, so those are some of the comparisons from the younger people to the older people. This is a big deal, Dan, and I'll tell you, you don't want to get too deep into the officiating because I'm not sure how many people are actually interested. Yeah. The NHL has a depth issue at the referee spot, and they've kind of done it to themselves because of some awful mistakes in earlier rounds. They have put great referees on the bench, so they've iced these guys. And they're way down their depth chart by the time they get to the Stanley Cup final. And so you're seeing referees in the Stanley Cup final who otherwise would not be calling these games. And that is definitely a factor in what happened last night.
Okay, walk us through the play.
Yeah, so it's Tyler Bozak and Noel Chara of the Bruins, and Chara has the puck, and the puck's in his skates, and Bozak is going for it, and just, it's a trip or it's a slew foot or it's somewhere in between. And you can even see that Bozak of the Blues has his palms in the air already ready to argue the call with the official, and the official doesn't even make the call. And all the Bruins then stopped playing because it looked so egregious that it had to be a penalty called. And so play was allowed to continue on. So it's sort of twofold. There's no call. You got the one guy already complaining to the ref about being sent to the box, which isn't even happening. And then you have the Bruins sort of standing around and watching what's going on, and that allows David Perron to really beat three Boston players and score the goal, which is, eventually the game-winning goal. So, look, it's a bad look, and Dan, this cup has been really good. This has been a really special Stanley Cup, based a lot on the teams and the market, right? St. Louis has been waiting for this for so long. This has been a heavy, hard-hitting series. And unfortunately, you get a call like last night, and that's what people are talking about. The front page of the St. Louis Post-Dispatch this morning blares, what a trip. You know what I mean? So we do love our clever newspaper headlines. So,
but also, I think the Blues prepared for a penalty. Leaves. I think they right. I can't sit here and go, boy, what are the Bruins complaining about? A penalty should have been called, and I think the Blues expected a penalty to be called.
No question, and they had their palms in the air also. The player Bozak of St. Louis, I think, was on his way to head for the penalty box,
yes.
And so he's not continuing on either. Good on David Perron to keep playing and score that goal. So look, a lot of we're going to talk about the call. I get it. Boston was dominant in the first period. This game should have been over in the first period. I think they outshot them. Outshot St. Louis 18-7. So there's a lot going on. And listen, we're not that far removed from Game 3 when Boston wins in St. Louis 7-2. Craig Berube, the still interim head coach of the Blues, goes on the attack the next day, Dan, and he goes 3 separate times in an 8-minute span. He goes, hey, in the first 3 rounds, we're the least penalized team in the NHL. And, he kept banging home that point. And you wonder if it's, the Blues' discipline or actually the way it's being called in games 4 and 5. But the Bruins' power play opportunities have been cut in half. So, do we think St. Louis, smartened up all of a sudden, or did he really have an impact on how the officials are calling the series? So, and that makes for obviously a fabulous theater come Sunday night in St. Louis to see how that's called.
He's Steve Levy from the Mothership covering the Stanley Cup Final. When Chara comes out, when I realized he had a broken jaw, and then I saw that they were fitting him with a special globe helmet, then I said, you know what? He'll play. Like hockey players play, but should we be surprised that he played with a broken jaw?
No, we shouldn't be, especially because it's him, right? Hockey players, are a different breed. They're the bravest athletes on the planet, I think. And while hockey has gotten a little soft, we've gotten away from the fighting and all of that, they are still the bravest, and you'd put Chara on top of that list.
Do players want fighting, Steve? If I said, let's take a poll, no names attached, would players want fighting back in hockey?
Absolutely, Dan. No doubt in my mind. I would say if you ran a poll, 75% of the players would vote for fighting in.
Wow.
And probably 75% of the media, yours included.
And the fans. Yeah. The other thing, I was curious about this with netting at a hockey game. How many arenas have protective netting so when pucks fly into the stands, nobody gets hurt?
They all have them, but they're only in the end zones. Okay, behind the goal, which makes a lot of sense. The NHL's come a long way on this. They used to have really short glass around the side, so that glass has gotten much higher over the years. But the netting is only around the end zone, and quite frankly, Dan, you see it once you walk in the building, but after you're staring through it for 5 minutes, you don't even notice it's there. And it's the way to go, man. And baseball, I think, has to follow that as well.
Yeah, that's what I kept telling people. And I went to a hockey game, and I saw the netting. And then after a while, you watch the game. And that's why when I look at baseball and go, if you put it in, it will become the new normal, and people won't be upset.
I totally agree. And look, nowadays you look around at the crowd, especially in those great expensive seats, people are on their phone the whole game. People are just they're not paying attention. And so in essence, you're protecting them from protecting themselves. They're just not paying attention. And the NHL, I hope they don't go. There really hasn't been an issue along the sides, behind the benches where there is netting. It's just a little higher glass. Yeah. But that's probably inevitable too. It's probably inevitable too. And here's a chance to get out in front of it and look smart, and really nobody gets hurt because, as you say, 5 minutes into watching the event, it disappears through your eyes.
How many sports centers have you done?
Apparently not 5,000 because I'm waiting for my special, and it hasn't happened yet.
Wow.
Are you counting re-airs?
No, not re-airs. I thought 2,000 was the magic number that I put up.
Elko is at 5,000.
Oh, come on.
Has obliterated your mark, Dan.
I was there 18 years. How could she do twice as many as me? I mean, come on.
Maybe they're counting re-airs.
Well, maybe re-airs.
They re-aired 12 times in the morning till 6 p.m.
You know what? I'm coming back to do more sports centers. Yep.
Hey,
this just
don't scare me. Bring it on. I want to sit next to you, Dan.
How many sports? We didn't do too many sports centers together, did we?
Not enough, but you were always a very kind soul. And, of course, the sports center you missed was my biggest downfall.
Oh, no.
Thanks for that, You had to take that night off, Dan. Of all the nights, you had to take that one off.
Oh, and I tune in. I think that's when one of my daughters was born, and I just tuned in because I tune into Sports Center, and Oberman is crying.
Yeah.
And I go, oh, my gosh, Keith, he lost it. Keith, he broke down. He's crying on the air. Yes. And I go, oh, my God. So I called the assignment desk. I said, why is Oberman crying? They go, you didn't see it? I go, no. And they go, well, Levy just said bulging disc, but he didn't say disc. And I go, oh, no. And I felt so bad because if I don't take that night off, then you're just Steve Levy. I mean, you're not bulging disc Levy.
Actually, it's kind of worked out, Dan. You got to be known for something. It's not a terrible thing. I really thought I was going to get fired the next day.
Why don't you start a foundation?
Nobody called me the next day and said, hey, that was great television. Keep up the good work. And that was, 23 years ago. So.
Well, it's like Chris Webber started a timeout foundation. How about a bulging disc? People with back issues.
It doesn't have the same ring to it, I don't think. Would it look good on hats and T-shirts?
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah.
Raise your hand if you have a bulging disc.
That would work out just great. I'd rather have be known for the hockey overtime thing, but that doesn't seem to have the staying power as bulging.
Yeah, nobody cares about the overtime.
Exactly.
Hey, tell Melrose we said hello. Great to catch up with you, Leave. Safe travels. Thank you.
Will do.
Thank you, bud. That's Steve Levy from the Mothership.
For more Dan Patrick Show, tune into Audience Channel 239 on DirecTV. Stream for free on BR Live or download the Dan Patrick Show app.